Welcome to Biomed Explorer. In this video, I'd like to talk about human skin. I'll cover what skin actually is, the three separate layers stacked on top of each other to build it, the hidden network inside your skin that has nothing to do with touch at all, how a wound quietly repairs itself without you ever giving the order, what happens when something goes wrong, and the daily habits slowly wearing this organ down without you ever noticing. So, let's get started. What is skin? Most people think of skin as little more than wrapping paper, a covering that keeps everything else in place. They know it can burn, bruise, and heal, but very few people actually understand how this thin sheet of tissue manages to seal out an entire hostile world while also acting as one of the busiest, most sensitive organs in the entire body. So, what exactly is it? Skin is the largest organ you own, covering roughly 2 square meters if you were to peel it off and lay it flat, and weighing more than any other single organ in your body. It isn't one simple layer, but 3 distinct layers stacked directly on top of each other, each built from completely different materials and each handling a completely different job. The part you see in the mirror is only the outermost sliver of a structure that runs far deeper through living cell factories, tangled nerve endings, and a bottom layer that acts almost like packing material for everything above it. Its entire purpose is to take a world full of bacteria, sunlight, scrapes, and shifting temperatures and turn all of that chaos into something your body can simply ignore. Without this system working properly, you wouldn't just look different, you'd lose your best defense against infection, your built-in thermostat, and your primary connection to the sense of touch itself, the epidermis, a wall that rebuilds itself. Let's start at the very top, with the layer you can actually touch, called the epidermis. And here's something that surprises a lot of people. This entire layer contains no blood vessels at all. It survives purely on nutrients seeping upward from the layer beneath it. The epidermis is built almost entirely from cells called keratinocytes, and their job is strange when you first hear it described. They're born at the very bottom of this layer, and from the moment they're created, they begin a slow upward migration toward the surface, changing shape as they climb. By the time they reach the top, they've flattened out, lost their nucleus, and packed themselves full of a tough protein called keratin, essentially turning into overlapping shingles on a roof. This outermost sheet of dead flattened cells is called the stratum corneum, and it's the reason water doesn't simply pass straight through your skin and rain doesn't dissolve you on the spot. You shed somewhere around 40,000 of these dead surface cells every single day, and the entire epidermis completely replaces itself roughly once a month. Tucked into the base of this layer are also melanocytes, specialized cells that produce the pigment melanin, which gives skin its color and doubles as a built-in shield against ultraviolet light. The dermis, the living core underneath. Just beneath the epidermis sits the dermis, and this is where skin stops being a simple wall and starts becoming genuinely alive. Unlike the layer above it, the dermis is thick, well-fed by blood vessels, and packed with structures that do real, active work. The dermis is built from a dense mesh of collagen and elastin fibers produced by cells called fibroblasts, which is why healthy skin can stretch when you move and spring back into shape afterward, a bit like a woven net that flexes without tearing. Woven through this mesh are hair follicles, sweat glands, oil glands, blood vessels, and a dense population of nerve endings responsible for nearly everything you feel through your skin, pressure, vibration, temperature, and pain. The dermis itself is split into 2 zones. The upper zone, called the papillary layer, is thin and loosely arranged, projecting tiny finger-like bumps upward into the epidermis that help anchor the 2 layers together. The lower zone, the reticular layer, is thicker and much denser, and it's this deep, tightly woven layer that gives skin most of its strength and resistance to tearing. The hypodermis, the hidden cushion. Past the dermis lies the hypodermis, and this is a layer most people never think about, largely because you can't see it and it isn't doing anything as dramatic as sensing touch or producing pigment. But its job is just as essential. The hypodermis is made mostly of fat cells and connective tissue, and it acts as a shock absorber, a thermal layer, and an anchor all at once. It cushions the muscles and bones beneath it from everyday bumps and impacts, insulates your body against heat loss the same way a jacket's lining traps warm air, and physically connects your skin to the structures underneath so that it can glide smoothly over muscle instead of dragging against it with every movement. This layer also varies enormously in thickness across your body, paper-thin over your eyelids, but noticeably thicker across your abdomen, which is part of why some areas bruise easily while others barely feel an impact at all. The hidden network you never notice. Here's a detail that catches almost everyone off guard. Buried inside these 3 layers is a network that has nothing to do with the structure or protection at all. It's a sensory system, quietly reporting on the outside world every single second you're awake. Skin contains several distinct types of touch receptors, each tuned to detect something different. Some respond only to light, fluttering touch, like the drag of fabric across your arm. Others fire only under sustained pressure, letting you know you're gripping something firmly. Separate receptors detect vibration, while still others are dedicated entirely to temperature or to pain. All of these signals travel up through nerve fibers into the spinal cord and eventually the brain, which stitches them together into a single seamless sense of touch, even though the raw information arrived from dozens of separate specialized sensors scattered throughout the skin. This is also why some areas of your body, like your fingertips and lips, feel far more sensitive than others, like your back. It isn't that the skin itself is different there, it's that those regions are packed with a much higher density of these receptors, giving the brain a much finer-grained picture of what's touching them, how a wound quietly repairs itself. Skin also does something almost no other visible part of your body does routinely. It rebuilds itself from actual damage in full view without you ever consciously directing the process. When skin is cut or scraped, blood vessels in the dermis constrict and clotting cells rush to the site, sealing the wound and forming a scab that protects the area from bacteria. Underneath that scab, immune cells clear away debris while fibroblasts move in and begin laying down fresh collagen, gradually rebuilding the structural mesh that was torn open. At the same time, cells at the wound's edges multiply and migrate inward, slowly closing the gap in the epidermis from the outside in. Over the following weeks, that patch of new tissue continues remodeling itself, with collagen fibers realigning and strengthening, which is why a fresh scar often fades and flattens considerably over the following months when the system breaks down. Given how many structures are packed into skin, it's no surprise that things can go wrong in a lot of different ways. Eczema develops when the skin's outer barrier becomes compromised, allowing moisture to escape and irritants to slip in, triggering chronic inflammation and itching. Psoriasis, by contrast, involves the immune system mistakenly accelerating the epidermis's normal renewal cycle, causing cells to pile up on the surface faster than they can shed, forming thick, scaly patches. Acne begins in the oil glands nestled in the dermis, when excess oil and dead skin cells clog a follicle, creating a small pocket where bacteria can multiply and trigger inflammation. And sunburn is essentially direct damage to the DNA inside skin cells from ultraviolet radiation, with the redness and pain being the visible sign of your body rushing extra blood and immune activity to the area to begin repairing that damage. Left unrepaired over many years, this same UV damage is also the leading driver behind skin cancers, which is part of why cumulative sun exposure matters just as much as any single bad burn. Daily habits, quietly wearing skin down. Even without an injury or a diagnosis, ordinary daily habits chip away at skin over time. Prolonged, unprotected sun exposure remains one of the single most damaging habits for skin, gradually breaking down collagen and elastin in the dermis, and accelerating the wrinkles and thinning most people associate with aging. Frequent hot showers strip away natural oils faster than the skin can replace them, leaving the outer barrier drier and more vulnerable. And smoking measurably reduces blood flow to the skin, starving the dermis of oxygen and nutrients it needs to keep producing fresh collagen, which is part of why it's so strongly linked to premature wrinkling. The 3 main jobs of the skin. So now that we've covered all of the parts, let's bring it together. Skin has 3 main jobs. It performs every single moment it's active. The first job is protection. The epidermis forms a shedding, self-renewing barrier against bacteria, water loss, and ultraviolet light, while melanin adds an extra layer of chemical defense. The second job is regulation and repair. The dermis manages blood flow and sweat production to control temperature, while its fibroblasts continually maintain and rebuild the structural mesh that gives skin its strength. The third job, running constantly in parallel, is sensing. Thousands of specialized receptors scattered through the skin feed a steady stream of information about touch, pressure, temperature, and pain up to the brain, all day, every day. Wrapping it up, there you have it. Human skin, a three-layered structure of self-renewing cells, woven collagen, hidden fat, and thousands of microscopic sensors working every second to protect you, regulate you, and connect you to the physical world. It rebuilds its outer wall roughly once a month, repairs its own wounds from the inside out, and quietly reports on everything you touch through a network you never consciously think about. Skin may be something you rarely consider beyond a scrape or a sunburn, but with every second that passes, it's shielding you from a hostile world while feeding your brain a constant, detailed picture of everything around you. Thanks for watching, and Biomed Explorer uploads a new science video every day. Please subscribe and share.